might begin with the opening statements, Madam DA.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please report?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Tonkar. Good afternoon. We are all here today because of this little girl. This is Alana Calahan. She was 14 years old and she was murdered. She was murdered on January 31st, 2011. At this point in the trial, I'm here to speak with you about what I intend the evidence to show. And in this case, I intend for the evidence to show you that what occurred on January 31st, 2011 was nothing short than cold-blooded, premeditated murder. On January 31st, 2011, Alana was coming home from Harlem Middle School. She got off the bus at approximately 3:32 p.m. that day. And we know that because of the GPS monitors that are on the buses in Columbia County. Her sister, Amanda Calahan, would have been the primary adult home at the time that afternoon. And typically, whenever it would rain, she would drive one of the family's trucks up to the end of the driveway to pick up her younger siblings so that they would not have to walk into the rain. This map is a general area. This road right here is Miles Road. And the Calahans actually live right here, which is 1159 Miles Road. So essentially she would travel all the way up this driveway and pick up her siblings at the end of their driveway from school whenever it would rain, and then return them back to the house. Alana, as I stated, got off the bus at about 3:32 p.m. Amanda remained at the home that day and until approximately 3:48 p.m. when she would have left to go pick up their younger brother, Chase, off of the elementary school bus. Chase, we know, got off of the bus at about 3:52 p.m. that day. As the GPS, you will hear testimony about the GPS time. And it takes about a minute and a half to get down the driveway in that truck. When Amanda gets to the end of the driveway to pick up Alana, though, she comes in contact with the defendant. The defendant lives at this house right here, 1218 Miles Road, and he was in high school at the time, so he got off the bus about an hour before Alana would have gotten home from school that day. And he, in the rain, in the cold, on that date, meets Amanda at the end of the driveway just to let Amanda know that he is on restriction and that he will not be able to come over to the Calahan home for about 2 weeks. And you will hear testimony about the defendant's explanation for the necessity to tell Amanda about this. And that stems from the fact that basically the defendant would go over to this home every single day. In fact, that was how, whenever he would be on restriction, that was what they would restrict him from, was going to the Calahan's home. He enjoyed being over there. The Calahan family welcomed him with open arms and treated the defendant as if he was, a very close friend or perhaps even an extended family member of that family. At any rate, the defendant sees Amanda Calahan right here before Alana gets off the bus. You will hear testimony from Cheryl Lowe, who dropped Alana off right here, and her next stop was right here at 1163 Miles Road. Cheryl Lowe will tell you that after she drops Alana off, she continues up her bus route, and prior to letting the children off at 1163, she sees an individual with their hands in their pockets and their head down with a hood over their head walking down the road, which causes her to be concerned, primarily for the reason that she's about to allow 2 children to get off of the bus, and she wants to make sure it is a safe environment for them to do so. Once she approaches this individual, she's able to ascertain that it is in fact the defendant, Lacy Aaron Schmidt, and he does not acknowledge her as he normally would do. She is also familiar with the defendant because she had driven the bus that he had previously rode on when he was in middle school. As she continues down Miles Road, she goes down here towards Coon Circle and then ultimately turns around. And this, as I stated before, is his house. There's a stop sign right in this area. She stops at the stop sign for an extended amount of time and observes the defendant right here in this area, which backs up to a path that goes to the Calahan home. Frequently, the defendant would travel through these paths to the back of the Calahan home rather than walking all the way down here and going all the way down the road. So she sees the defendant right here with his hood on and his hands still in his pockets. He's not wanting to make contact with her, not acknowledging the fact that she's there. And she goes on about her way. When Amanda Calahan leaves the home after dropping Alana off, Alana is on the computer. She's on Facebook. She's uploading photographs to Facebook. And Amanda leaves to go pick up Chase. In the amount of time that it took Amanda Calahan to get in her truck, drive down the driveway, and pick up Chase, who was already off the bus by the time she gets to the end of the driveway, she picks Chase up and drives all the way back down the driveway and walks in her house. The defendant has managed to shoot Alana Calahan in the back of the head and drag her body 200 feet behind her house. In fact, he drug it all the way from right here, all the way to the end of this, to the very beginning of the path in the woods. He drug it as far as he could until he heard that truck coming. Because he knew what that truck sounded like, because he had heard it so many times before. Once Amanda walks into the home, she immediately notices that the back sliding glass door is open. And as I stated, it was cold that day, and obviously this was out of the ordinary. The computer chair is knocked over. There's a pool of blood on the floor. At the time, she doesn't know that it's blood. She thinks it's Kool-Aid or something. And as she's making these observations, the defendant comes flying in the front door right behind her. He has no shoes on. She notices that his shoes were right next to Alana's shoes at the front of the house, as their common rule was that you had to take off your shoes before entering their home. So he comes flying in the front door, yelling something about seeing some whitish, blackish person running through the woods, and that Alana is missing. At that point, Amanda is in a panic. The defendant puts on his shoes, runs around the back of the home. So he comes from this area, goes behind the home. The truck is parked on the side of the home, and he immediately runs to the right of the yard, which is significant later because that is ultimately where the gun is recovered. Without getting too close to the actual location where Alana's body was, the defendant pronounces to Amanda that he has become physically ill. So he runs to the side of the woods where he tells Amanda that he needs to throw up. Of course, he does not throw up, but he points to the general area that he sees Alana in. She's wearing a bright blue shirt at that time, and I suppose in Amanda's panic, just assumes that that's what caught his attention. She goes over to find Alana, completely bloody from the head up. She cannot determine whether or not she's been beat or whether she's just been struck with an object. She has no idea what's wrong with her sister. All she knows is that she's unresponsive. At that point, she dials 911. The defendant is also there with Amanda. While Amanda is on the phone with 911 operator, she is attempting to give her sister CPR. And when she goes to open her mouth to give her breaths, becomes very upset by the fact that her mouth is in fact full of blood, and becomes somewhat hysterical on the 911 call, at which point the defendant takes over the phone call. he is on the phone with the 911 operator, and you will hear from that individual. You will hear that phone call, and you will hear the defendant's fake emotion. He is repeating this story about how he saw this man running through the woods while he was on his way home. He saw this man, so he wanted to go investigate why this man was down there. And then he went to the Calahan home to see if they had also seen this man running through the woods, and at that point realizes that Alana was missing. Of course, the sheriff's office responds. Several officers, including 2 K-9 units, have infiltrated this area of Harlem, and they are actively pursuing what they believe to be an unknown man running through the woods who has murdered a 14-year-old little girl. At this point, both Amanda and the defendant are asked to come in for questioning. Before they leave the address on Miles Road, they are photographed, and you will see Amanda's hands are covered in her sister's blood. She has obviously been handling the victim in this case, and what you will also see is that the defendant had blood all over his sweatshirt, some spots on his pants, all around the rings of his sweatshirt jacket, but mysteriously nothing on his hands, even though he acknowledges that he was trying to supposedly help with CPR. At this point, they are taken to CID in Appling, and they are questioned as witnesses in the case. At this point, all the investigators know is that these 2 individuals were the ones that found Alana, and we have one individual who apparently has seen the individual who did this to her. They questioned Amanda. You will have the opportunity to observe that interview, and you will see that Amanda has no idea. It is the furthest thought from her brain that this defendant has done this to her sister. She doesn't. She's obviously upset. She still has the blood of her sister on her hands. She's being questioned as a witness, but essentially also a person of interest. They're just trying to gather as much information as they can. And they're questioning her about these details that the defendant had given her and how they're not adding up, and she's not able to explain them because she doesn't know. Then they question the defendant, and at that point, his story begins to change. It changes about 27 times. At first, it's this man running through the woods that he sees, and he goes up to the Calahan home just to see if they've seen him. And then he changes the story again and says that it's actually a black man running through the woods. He can't decide what they're wearing, what color they are. He blames it on an individual up the road that he doesn't know the name of. It was this guy. He plays with automatic weapons all the time in his front yard. Never mind, it's not that guy. It's this guy, David Mathis, who lives down the street. For about an hour and a half to 2 hours, he tells these investigators story after story after story. He's constantly changing his story to mold to the facts. The investigators at first are trying to figure out if he is just not recalling everything, if he's shaken up. They aren't sure why he's having such a disconnect, and then it becomes obvious because the truth never changes. You don't have a reason to make up a lie if the truth is better. The truth in this case was not better for the defendant. It was self-serving for him to make up this story after story after story. Finally, the defendant acknowledges that it was an accident, that he didn't mean to shoot Alana, at which point the interview was terminated. They read him his Miranda rights, and he waives those Miranda rights and continues to talk to investigators after this. And then his story changes again. Changes about 5 or 6 more times about how this happened. First, he's standing on top of a table, and he's just trying to unload the gun, and it accidentally goes off. And then it's that Alana, who was raised in a family with a father who was more than capable than teaching her how to use a weapon. And you'll hear from her father, who's going to tell you that Alana didn't have any interest in guns whatsoever. But the defendant's story was that Alana asked him to come in the house and show her how to use this weapon. Ultimately, the gun goes off when he's trying to snatch it from her, and there's about 4 accounts of how that transaction occurred. But the bottom line is that none of his accounts fit the evidence, and that's because none of his accounts are true. You will hear from the firearms expert that's going to tell you at the very minimum, this firearm, which is a 9mm Taurus handgun, it would have taken about 4.5 pounds of pressure to pull the trigger in this case, which is a significant amount of pressure that you would have had to apply. At worst case scenario, it could have been as much as 13 pounds of pressure, depending on whether or not he had the hammer of the firearm pulled back. But regardless, this is not what some people would classify as a hair trigger or something that you could easily just set off. The other thing that doesn't add up is that Alana was shot in the back of the head. By all accounts, she never saw what was coming. She may not have even known that he was there. She was shot in the back of the head and exited out the front of her mouth. And then the defendant drug her 120-pound body 200 feet into the woods. He later, during his statement, compares it to taking out trash. You will see his statement and how the emotion is so fake. There are no tears. He is not sad. He was obsessed with the Calahan family. You will hear about an incident which occurred about a week prior to this terrible tragedy, and that is when the defendant, who had been previously told on multiple occasions that he was not allowed to be at the Calahan house without a parent, which would be standard for any parent of a 14-year-old girl. You don't want a 14-year-old boy in your home without your parents being home, without a parent being home, without someone to supervise this. And he was there about a week prior. And you'll hear from Betty Jo Calahan, who was Alana's mother, that she was furious. It was the first time in they had been living at this residence for less than a year, the entire time of which they were friends with Aaron Schmidt. But you will hear that this was the first time that she had ever gotten mad at Aaron. At this point, Alana got him in trouble. She was a threat, and the defendant had to eliminate that threat. You will hear that this was what actually happened with this defendant was that he waited for Alana to get home, just like he had done so many days before. And he knew once he saw Amanda into that driveway that it was coming soon. So he starts taking off on foot. He waits in those woods. He waits for Amanda Calahan to leave. And as soon as that truck cranks up to go down this driveway to chase, he is in that house. He's coming in the front door. Takes off his shoes, puts them right next to Alana's. He has the gun, which belongs to her father, but which the defendant had previously taken on a different day. You'll hear from Paul Calahan that he had gone out of town on January 27th. And at that time, this gun was in its box on top of his dresser under some hats. Then he stands behind Alana and he fires the gun, killing her almost instantly. And he drags her body out as far as he can get it until he hears Amanda come home. At which point he runs around the front of the house and makes up this elaborate story of this individual running through the woods. What the defendant is not going to explain in his statement is how that gun box and how that gun manual managed to get all the way back at his house underneath his bathroom. He never would have had enough time to walk all the way through this path, get all the way to Alana, kill her, drag her body out, and then take the box home, then come all the way back in about a 6-minute time period, which it would have taken Amanda to get all the way down to the driveway and back. His story makes no sense. Aaron Schmidt is nothing other than a cold-blooded murderer. At the end of this trial, you will have more than enough evidence to conclude that beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered Alana Calahan. He stole the firearm from their home for one purpose, and that was to get rid of Alana. He drug her body out, and by his own words, like trash, and left her in the woods. Sent the sheriff's office on a wild goose chase for this make-believe man. Not because it was an accident. This was intentional. Aaron Schmidt, you will find, murdered Alana Calahan, and we will be asking you to find him guilty of all counts at the end of evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Duncore?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a tragedy. This was a tragedy where a 14-year-old girl lost her life. But this is not a cold-blooded murder. What this is, it's a case about a seriously traumatized, neglected, abused 14-year-old little boy snapping. Throughout this this trial, you're going to hear evidence about Aaron's life growing up. A man raped his stepdaughter. They had 4 kids together. She was underage. Aaron's the third of those 4 children. Before he was 5, his mother was extensively doing drugs, physically, emotionally, and sexually abused Aaron. He was taken away by DFACS when he was 5 and placed with his half-sister, who was significantly older, due to the relationship between his father and his mother. And you'll hear from his relatives who will testify on behalf of the state, that he wasn't even accepted into that family. There was still some tension. He was a reminder among the family of the dirty little family secret of incest. When the Calahans moved in next door or across the woods, what you'll hear, and Ms. Payne spoke about this, Aaron essentially fell in love, not with Alana, with the Calahans. He would come over every day, help out with the yard work with Mr. Calahan. He loved them. He was finally accepted. That was the first time anyone took, an interest in what Aaron was doing. Aaron loved to work, and so he would come over and he would help out. He was helping out with their house as they were putting their house together. He loved this family. This is not a family that he would ever have really premeditated and done any harm to. What you'll hear during Aaron's statement is 4 hours of a 14-year-old kid, and as the cop says, scared to dang death about what happened and trying to figure out what happened. But it doesn't occur to a 14-year-old kid that the truth might actually be better than all these lies he's telling, because he can't understand really what happened. He's a kid. And so you'll see these story after story after story as he himself is trying to put together all of this and understand what he had just done. You'll see in the recording, he says a number of times, he doesn't want them to be mad at him. He doesn't want the Calahans to be mad at him. He's so terrified of losing their love because of what he just did. He would never have planned out this murder and done it in cold blood. You'll also hear from his half-sister that he was beaten up the week before by a gang of boys, beaten to a pulp in the Grovetown High School bathroom. And that was when he went and took the gun from Mr. Paul Calahan. It was not that day. He took it a few days before because he was scared and he wanted protection. And you'll hear testimony that, as Ms. Payne stated, the gun was sitting just up on top of Mr. Callahan's dresser with the ammunition right on top of it. And Aaron saw a chance to protect himself. He didn't go hunting, trying to break into a gun box, gun lock. He took the gun and was carrying it around with him. It's unfortunate that he was carrying it around with him that day. Very unfortunate, because something happened. It is clear that he couldn't have gone over there premeditatedly to kill Alana Calahan. He knew Amanda was on her way back up. You'll hear testimony. He was over there every day. He knew Amanda's schedule. He knew it just like clockwork. He knew Amanda would be back in a minute. And you'll hear, again, he untied his shoes, they were sneakers, and left his shoes there. And so when he took the body out, he was in his socks. It would make no sense to do that if you were planning on killing someone, to take off your shoes. And most of the actions that Aaron will see on the video are because of his upbringing, because of his panic, because of his age. We are the first to say that his video statement is not sympathetic. It is not sympathetic. He is a 14-year-old kid who has a history of trauma, who himself has just been through another trauma. Something happened and he snapped. He snapped and he had the gun on him and he killed Alana Calahan. This was not premeditated. He did not plan this out. And we are confident the evidence will show that this is a case truly of a 14-year-old child who has been abused, traumatized, and neglected his entire life, who snapped. And because of that, we'll be asking you to return not a guilty verdict on malice murder, but on the lesser included offense of voluntary manslaughter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunbar. Ms. Calahan, would you state for the record, please, your full name?
Betty Jo Callahan,
Ms. Calahan, where do you live?
1159 Miles Road.
Thank you, ma'am. Please answer council's questions. And if anybody on the jury has any trouble hearing, please let me know so we can rearrange the mic.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you. Ms. Callahan, how many children do you have?
6.
Okay, and what are their names and ages?
Jason Callahan, he turns 21 today. Haley Ann Zaire, she's 19. Amanda Calahan, she's 20. Alana, she would be 15, but and then I have Paul Callahan III, who's 11, and Chase Ryan Callahan, who's 10.
And in January of 2011, which of these children were living with you at your residence?
Amanda, Paul, and Chase.
Okay, where was Alana living at that time?
Oh, Alana was living there too.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Callahan, I'm showing you what's been previously marked State Exhibit 226. I just want you to look at this and tell me if you recognize that photograph.
That was Alana's 8th grade school picture.
Okay, is that a fair and accurate depiction of how Alana appeared in January of 2011?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time we would seek to admit State's Exhibit number 226.
Any objection?
Yes, sir.
States 226 is admitted without objection.
And Your Honor, may I just briefly publish it to the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And what was the residence you were residing at in January of 2011?
1159 Miles Road,
Okay, and what county is that in?
Columbia County.
How long had you resided at that residence?
I think we bought the place in April, but the kids finished out the school year at Columbia and Westmont because we were painting and everything. And then we didn't move in until, I think, July
July of what year?
of 2011.
Of 2011 or?
2010.
Okay. At any point while you resided at 1159 Miles Road, did you ever come in contact with anyone by the name of Lacy Aaron Schmidt?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did that first occur?
When we were painting the house, he come through the woods on a path,
Do you
the
remember what
house.
month that would have been?
It was like the first month that we had the house. So I guess in April.
Of 2010?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you see Lacy Aaron Schmidt in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And if you would, please identify him by one article of clothing that he is wearing.
A green shirt.
Thank you. May the record reflect she has identified the defendant.
And the record will so reflect.
What was the relationship between your family and Lacy Aaron Schmidt?
Aaron became friends with Alana and the boys, and at one point they had wanted to be girlfriend and boyfriend, but Alana had talked to her youth pastor and was told that she was too young,
Okay, so when did they stop being boyfriend and girlfriend?
like 3 days after it happened,
Okay, and so with this, do you know what year this was?
2010.
Okay, and after they were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend, did he continue a relationship with your family?
Yes, he came over every day.
It's okay, if you need a minute, it's okay.
He ate dinner at our table. I treated him like he was one of my own kids. We bought him birthday presents and we bought him Christmas presents. And we even took him on family trips with us.
It's okay, if you need a minute, it's okay. Ms. Calahan, during the week, when would he come over?
After school.
And do you recall what time that may be?
I think he got out of school before 3.
Okay. Did he get home before or after Alana did?
He always got home before Alana.
Okay. And do you know about how long before Alana?
Maybe 30 minutes, I think,
Okay.
beforehand.
And during the week, would you always be home when Alana would get home from school?
We'd always try to be home before she got home so that way she wouldn't be there by herself. And there was only one day that I know of that we didn't make it there, which was on a Wednesday.
Okay. And if you or your husband were not home, who was the adult, if you would, in charge, I guess, at that point?
Her sister Amanda.
Okay. And were there any restrictions on when Aaron was allowed to be at your home?
He wasn't supposed to be at the house unless me or my husband was there.
Okay. And when did that rule come into play?
The Wednesday before Alana was killed.
Okay.
About
And
that week.
what happened on that date that resulted in this rule coming about?
I had a doctor's appointment. I had a procedure done at Eisenhower. We were running like 5 minutes late before we got home, and Alana had already made it down the driveway into the house. When she got there, the door was already open and everything, and Aaron was in the house.
Okay. And how much longer after that did you arrive at the residence?
Like within 5 minutes.
Okay. And what happened once you got home?
When I got there, Alana told me that Aaron was in the house and everything before she got home, and that the door was unlocked. And I asked Aaron, how did he get in the house? And he said that we had left the door unlocked. And I told him, no, we didn't. But I used a nasty word because you had to use a key to lock the deadbolt because the little turn lock didn't work.
Okay. And were you angry?
Yes, I was angry.
And who were you angry at?
I was mad at Aaron, and I told him that he couldn't come back to the house.
Okay. And did you yell at him when you told him that?
Yes, ma'am.
Had you ever spoken to Aaron in this manner before?
No.
And what was his response when you yelled at him?
He just said that the door was unlocked, and he didn't have an attitude or anything, and he just went home.
Okay. And do you recall what date this, or how many days prior to Alana's death this would have been?
The Wednesday before that Monday.
And do you recall January 31st, 2011?
Yeah, that's the day that she got killed.
I'm sorry.
That's the day that she was killed.
Okay, are you speaking of Alana?
Yes, Alana, I'm sorry.
And how old was Alana when she was killed?
14.
At this point, on January 31st, was your husband home?
No, he was in Massachusetts going to school for the Army.
Okay, and how long had he been gone at that time?
A week.
A week?
Yeah. Week and a half.
Were there any guns kept in your home?
Yes, ma'am.
How many would you say?
2.
And what type of guns were those?
One was a shotgun, I guess. The other one wasn't it was in a case.
Okay, like a shorter gun?
Yes.
Okay. And where were these guns located?
And mine and my husband's room. One was in the corner on his side of the room, and the other one, the one that was in the box, was on top of his dresser up underneath his hats.
Okay. Were there any household rules with regard to the guns?
Yes, the kids didn't mess with it.
What about Aaron? Was he ever allowed to handle any of the guns at your house?
No, ma'am.
And what about Alana? Was she ever interested in any of the guns?
No, she wasn't really interested in guns. I mean, she went hunting, but she went hunting with a friend of hers.
Okay. And what about your bedroom? Was it were the kids allowed free access to your bedroom when you or your husband were not home?
No, ma'am. Our kids were not allowed in our room at all, and they knew it.
And what about your bedroom door? Was it kept open or shut?
Shut.
What about when individuals come over to your house, do you require them to take off their shoes?
Yes, at the door, because our driveway, walkway up the stairs is Georgia red clay, and I don't care for the clay to be in my carpet.
Okay, so where would be the common area where you would keep shoes?
As you walk in the door, the little foyer area where the bench sits.
Was that common knowledge among your children and their friends?
Yes.
After January 31st, 2011, did you come to find anything missing from your home?
Yes. My camera was missing. I have jewelry that was missing. The chargers are still missing for the MP3 players and the camera. And I guess that's it.
Okay, were any of these items ever located?
Yes, we were told that the detectives found them in Aaron's house.
Okay. On January 31st, 2011, would Aaron Schmidt have had any business being in your home without you or your husband being present?
No.
Thank you. Any further questions at this point?
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Dunkar, cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Ms. Calahan. Just very briefly, prior to that week, you hadn't really had any problems with Aaron. Is that right?
No, just he knew that he wasn't supposed to be at the house.
Okay. And when he would come over, he would help Mr. Calahan with things around the house, working in the yard, etc.?
Yes.
Okay. And he was always very good with the boys and had never shown any aggressive tendencies?
Not really. The only thing that ever happened with the boys, whenever they were on the four-wheeler with them, they always ended up getting hurt.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything further, Madam DA?
Just one question. Out of the items taken from your home, were there any house keys missing?
Yes, Alana's house keys were missing.
No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. John Carr?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Calahan, you may step down. Ms. Calahan, you may remain in the courtroom if you like to. Thank you. Ms. Payne, your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the next witness will be Paul Calahan.
Paul Calahan, please. If you would state for the record your full name.
Paul Robert Calahan, Jr.
Thank you, sir. Please, where do you live, sir?
With the whole address?
Thank you, sir. Please answer council's questions. Madam DA?
Thank you. Mr. Calahan, did you reside at 1159 Miles Road in January 2011?
Yes.
And approximately when did you move into that residence?
Move in. School year, May. After school got out of May of 2010.
And what county is that in?
Columbia.
How many children were residing with you at that location when you moved in?
4.
And what are those children's names?
Amanda, Alana, Paul, 3rd, and Chase.
That thing. You want me to approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Calahan, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as State Exhibit 214. Do you recognize this?
I do.
And what is this?
It's a plat of the surrounding areas of my house.
Okay. Does it appear to be a fair and accurate
Yes.
depiction? Your Honor, at this time we would seek State Exhibit 214.
Madam DA? Madam Defense Counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. It's submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I publish this to the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Calahan, are you familiar with an individual by the name of Aaron Schmidt? Or
Yes, ma'am.
Lacy Aaron Schmidt?
Yes.
And do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And if you would, please identify him by one article of clothing that he is wearing.
Green shirt.
Thank you. May the record reflect he has identified the defendant.
All right, we'll reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
How did you meet Aaron Schmidt?
We bought the house about March of 2010. And before we moved in, we were there on the weekends to paint the house to get ready for us to move in. And we were there one weekend, and he showed up and just started talking and playing with the kids.
Okay. And would he visit your home on a regular basis?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the relationship like between your family and Mr. Schmidt?
Really good. He was there, like I said, all the time. Had dinner with us, cookouts with us, with the four-wheelers. Just a regular neighborhood kid that was there all the time.
Okay. And, Your Honor, may I have the witness step off the stand just to identify someone?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Callahan, you can sit down.
Where did the defendant reside? And you can use this if you want, it might be easier.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can have a seat over here if
Let's
you'd
start
like.
out. Where did you live?
We live right here,
Okay. And where did the defendant live?
right there.
Okay. And how would the defendant travel, if you could just use your finger, how would he travel to your residence?
Down this drive here and come out either one or two paths through here or through here.
So through the woods?
Yes, through the woods.
Okay. And if you would just point out where your driveway ultimately runs into Miles Road.
My driveway starts here at the house and goes all the way down to my road.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Right. Thanks. Were there any rules about when Aaron Schmidt was allowed to be at your home?
It's usually when somebody was home, myself.
Okay. And do you recall where you were on January 31st, 2011?
Yes, I do.
Where were you?
Fort Devens, Massachusetts.
And why were you in Massachusetts?
I was there for military school.
Do you recall when you had left to go to military school?
I do.
When was that?
23rd January. It was a Sunday.
When were you scheduled to return?
Approximately 6 weeks later.
Do you, at that time, did you keep any weapons in your home, guns specifically?
Yes.
And what type of guns did you have?
I had a handgun and a rifle.
Okay, and what type of handgun was it?
9mm Taurus.
And what type of handgun was this?
9mm Taurus.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit 224. We just asked you to open that and tell me if you identify the contents of that box.
One handgun with one magazine.
Okay, and do you recognize that handgun?
I do.
And how do you recognize it?
It's mine. It's just black handle and chrome plated, silver plated looking.
Okay, so you recognize that firearm to be yours?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, we would seek to admit State's Exhibit 224.
Which is the gun and the magazine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, sir.
Thank you, they're admitted.
And if I might just publish these to the jury, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. Just for the record, let's be sure the gun has been secured.
Yes, Your Honor. The gun does have a secure lock on it.
Thank you.
And when was the last time you saw this weapon prior to being in court today? Or
Saturday before, which would have been the 22nd of January.
did you ever allow Aaron Schmidt to fire that weapon?
When I fired, he was never there to fire it.
Okay. Did you ever have the occasion to put the weapon up in his presence?
No.
To your knowledge, is there any way he would know where you keep that firearm? And where did you keep that firearm?
It was in the on top of my far left dresser, under some hats, in a black case.
In a black case?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to ask you to open this bag and look inside and tell me what it is.
Take it out.
And what is that?
Black case, Taurus case.
And do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
It's a black Taurus case for the handgun.
Is it yours?
Yes, it is mine.
Your Honor, this time we would seek 216, excuse me.
216.
Yes.
Any objection?
No, sir.
Thank you. 216 submitted without objection.
Your Honor, may I publish this to the jury? And where was this box kept?
It was kept on top of my dresser, under some hats.
To your knowledge, did you ever handle this box or the firearm in the presence of the defendant?
No.
I'm going to show you, Your Honor, may I approach the witness again?
Yes, ma'am.
State Exhibit 215 and ask you if you recognize this.
I do.
And what is that?
It's the owner's manual to the handgun.
Have you ever seen that one before?
I have.
Where have you seen it before?
Was it inside the case?
With the gun? Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, we would seek to admit State's Exhibit 215 to the jury. And again, I'm just asked to publish this to the jury.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, were there any rules in regards to the handling of firearms by your children in your household?
Yes. One, they don't go into our rooms without asking, and even with my two younger kids' BB guns, they stay in the room. They don't go into my room without asking to go in there to get them. So they don't mess with them at all.
Okay. Did you ever teach Alana how to use a firearm?
No.
Did she ever have any interest in using a gun?
No.
If I could just have one second, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions of this witness.
Thank you. Ms. Dunkar?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of questions, Mr. Callahan. Prior to you leaving for Massachusetts, Aaron had helped a lot around the house with you. He liked to come over and work and be a benefit to the household.
Yes, ma'am.
And the last time you saw the gun was on January 22nd, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Payne, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Callahan, you can step down. And you might remain in the courtroom if you like, sir. Thank you. Ms. Peterson, if you would state for the record your full name.
Glenda Peterson,
Thank you, ma'am. And where do you reside?
at 1429 Old Louisville Road, Grovetown.
Thank you, ma'am. Please answer council's questions.
Thank you. Ms. Peterson, how are you employed?
Columbia County Board of Education, Transportation Department, Special Ed.
And what do you do in the transportation department?
I drive a special ed school bus.
Okay. And specifically, what schools do you drive for? Or let me rephrase
This
that.
year,
In January of 2011, what schools were you driving for?
Grovetown High School, Lewiston Elementary,
And in January 2011, what was your route for Grovetown High School? What area did you cover? Miles Road?
yes,
Okay. Did you have anyone on your bus at that time by the name of Lacy Aaron Schmidt?
yes ma'am,
And do you see that individual in the courtroom today?
yes.
And if you would please identify him by one article of clothing.
He's wearing a green shirt.
Thank you, ma'am. The record reflects she has identified the juvenile.
And the record will so reflect.
Thank you. At this point, in January 2011, do you recall him specifically being on your bus January 31st, 2011?
Yes, he was.
And do you recall what he was wearing that day?
He was wearing a white sweatshirt type jacket and a pair of blue jeans.
Okay. And what time did you drop him off?
It was between 1:40, 1:50.
Is that normal? Was that normally the time of day he would get home?
Yes.
Between 1:40 and 1:50 every day?
Yes.
And what location would you drop him off? Where on Miles Road?
At his home.
Okay. Do you recall where that was or what part of the road?
Oh Lord, it was Miles Road, but there was a road. He was on a corner. It was on a corner lot. I can't remember the names of the other road.
Okay. It was on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the record, what county is that?
Columbia County.
Do you recall anything out of the ordinary about that date? I mean, about Aaron on that date?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Dunkar?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Peterson. Just to clarify a couple things, you drive this special ed school bus for Columbia County.
Yes.
Okay. And Aaron was always very polite with you.
Yes, he was.
Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Yes, he was.
And that day, there was nothing special, nothing you noticed? He
No.
wasn't agitated?
No.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Payne, anything further?
No.
Thank you. You can step down. Ms. Peterson, if you desire, you can remain in the courtroom now. All righty, our next witness, please.
Your Honor, the state would call Cheryl Lowe.
Cheryl Lowe, please. Madam DA, and for the record, your full name and where you live.
Cheryl Lowe, 1256 Grant Road, Harlem, Georgia.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe, how are you employed?
I'm a bus driver for Columbia County Transportation.
And how long have you done that?
About 15 years.
And in January in 2011, what schools were you servicing at that time?
Harlem Middle, Harlem High, and Uchee Creek Elementary.
Did part of your route at that time include Miles Road?
Yes.
And are you familiar with an individual by the name of Alana Calahan?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with Alana?
I drove Alana's bus.
Okay. And where would you pick Alana up from?
Miles Road, between like 1159 and 1161, there were like 3 or 4 mailboxes there together.
Okay. And where was she attending school at the time?
Harlem Middle.
Okay. And are you also familiar with an individual by the name of Aaron Schmidt?
Yes.
And do you see Aaron Schmidt in the courtroom?
Yes.
And if you would, please identify him by one article of clothing he's wearing.
Green shirt.
Thank you. May the record reflect she has identified the defendant.
And the record will reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
Thank you. And how do you know Aaron Schmidt?
He rode my bus at one time also.
Okay. Is that prior to January 2011?
Yes, it was years before.
And, Your Honor, if I might publish again, it states Exhibit 214 and get the witness to come off the stand if that's okay with Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. You can sit down.
Ma'am, if you would, stand over here so the jury can see. Show the jury where you would typically drop Alana off, if you can tell from this picture.
Okay, where's Miles Road?
This is Miles Road right here.
Oh, okay.
So,
This is county line?
no, this is a driveway. My county line would be down there
over
further.
here. Okay. So it would be,
These are the address numbers.
okay, so it would be right in here.
Okay. And
Ms. Lowe, I'm sorry. Do you have a pointer or something that can be used?
thanks.
I'm seeing the jurors on this side. Can I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here, see if you can stand over here and just point to it with that pointer. You just push the little button.
It would be like right in there somewhere.
Okay. And when you would drop Alana off, would anyone ever be waiting for her to pick her up?
Yes,
And-
several times.
What type of vehicle would that be?
Usually a white truck.
Okay. Do you know who the person was that was driving that vehicle?
Most of the time, I think it was her sister.
Okay.
It's a young girl.
And are you familiar with the area in which the defendant resides?
Yes, he was at the corner of Miles Road where it dead end and turned back into Coon.
Okay. Can you identify with the pointer the general area that would have been?
That'd be like,
That's Miles Road. Yeah.
this is Miles Road, and if that's where it goes into Coon.
Okay. So in that area.
Yeah, it kind of dead end and then went back. I'd have to turn back to the left to go down Miles and Coon, and it would kind of split off.
Okay, so if this is Coon Road and this is Miles Road,
Yeah.
the area would be
He would live like right in there.
Okay. And do you recall dropping Alana off on January 31st, 2011?
Yes.
And did you drop her off at the regular spot?
Yes.
And was anyone there waiting for her?
Yes.
And what vehicle was waiting for her that day?
The white truck.
Okay. And did you see the defendant on that day?
Yes.
And where did you see the defendant that day?
He was at 1163 at the driveway, like right in there. I know that because I had stopped to put the next group of kids off.
Okay. And what, if anything, drew your attention to him that day?
We are trained to pay attention to what's around the stops when we stop, and I noticed someone walking with their hands in their pocket and a hood over their head, the hooded jacket over their head. And I had two little girls getting off at that stop, and I wanted to make sure that it was safe to put them off. And so I kind of paid attention to see who it was and realized it was Aaron.
Okay. And were you able to determine that because you are familiar with him?
Yes.
Okay.
And the students knew him as well.
Okay. Did you see him again after you dropped those two girls off?
Yes.
And where did you see him the next time?
At the corner of where he lives and Miles Road, but he was across the street from his house.
Okay, so on the opposite side of the road from his house.
Right.
Okay, and can you point with the pointer the generalized area where you're speaking of?
Okay, if that's his house right there, he was like right in there.
Okay, and did, I guess commonly when you would be on this particular route, the route that you drop Alana off, would you ever pass Aaron Schmidt?
Yes.
On base prior?
Yes.
Okay, and would he ever acknowledge you?
He would acknowledge me in some sort of way.
Okay, did he acknowledge you that day?
No.
Okay, did he make eye contact with you that day?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Did you, or which direction were you going the second time you passed him?
The second time, if that's Coon and that's Miles, I would have made that circle and come out right there.
Okay.
And he was right across from me.
Okay. On foot?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You can return to the witness stand. After you left that area of Miles Road, do you recall passing the elementary school bus?
Yes.
And approximately how long after you dropped, or after you saw the defendant for the last time, did you pass that elementary school bus?
Maybe 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay. And for the record, well, actually, do you recall exactly what time you dropped Alana off that day?
I'm thinking it was like 3:32, 3:33.
Okay. And is that the same day that you would drop him off, or drop her off every day?
Yes.
And is your bus equipped with GPS technology?
Yes.
And does it give you an exact time that that each stop is made?
Yes, the transportation department can pull that up.
And Your Honor, may I just approach the witness?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you. Yes, this is the bus activity report. According to that bus activity report, what time did you drop Alana off that day?
3:32.
And how many seconds?
45.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lowe. I don't have any further questions. Ms. Donkar might have some for you, so just hold tight just a second.
Ms. Donkar?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be brief. So this was in January,
Yes, ma'am.
and Aaron was walking along the side of the road
Yes,
when
ma'am.
the first time you saw him. Do you remember if it was cold out that day?
I don't remember how cool it was, no.
Okay. But it was wintertime.
Yes, ma'am.
And every other time when Aaron had seen you when you were driving the bus, he waved. He would wave at you. Not this time, or he would
wouldn't
acknowledge
wave,
you.
He would acknowledge, look up at the bus or something.
Okay. But this time he didn't acknowledge you.
No, ma'am.
Okay. But he had a hood over his head,
Yes, ma'am.
and he was looking down.
Yes.
Okay.
The first time.
The first time. Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Payne?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You can sit down.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lowe, you might also remain in the courtroom if you like. Call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the state would call Alina Walls.
What's that last name?
Walls.
Okay, thank you. If you'd say for the record, please, your full name.
Alina Christine Walls,
Where do you live, Ms. Walsh?
5435 Old Augusta Highway, Grovetown, Georgia.
Thank you, ma'am. Please answer council's questions. Madam DA?
Thank you. Ms. Walls, how are you employed?
Employed with Columbia County Board of Education. I'm a school bus driver.
And were you a bus driver in January of 2011?
Yes, ma'am.
And in January of 2011, what schools were you picking up from?
North Harlem Elementary, Harlem Middle, and Harlem High.
Okay. And did part of your route include Miles Road?
Yes, ma'am, my elementary.
Are you familiar with an individual by the name of Chase Callahan?
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you familiar with Chase?
He rides my bus.
Did he ride your bus in January 2011?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know what road Chase lives off of?
He lives on Miles Road.
Do you recall ever dropping Chase off at his bus stop and anyone waiting for him to pick him up?
Most of the time, yes, ma'am, there was somebody there.
Okay.
It was very uncommon for somebody not to be there.
Okay. And what type of vehicle would they arrive to pick him up in?
Sometimes there'd be a silver truck there. A lot of times it was his older sister on four-wheelers.
Okay. And do you know what county this was in?
Columbia County.
Do you recall dropping Chase off at his address on January 31st, 2011?
Yes, ma'am.
And was anyone waiting for him on that date?
At that particular day, no, ma'am. There was nobody at the top of the drive.
And as part of your route, do you continue down Miles Road and then ultimately have to come back out the same way you went in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you turn your bus around to leave Miles Road, did you pass Chase's bus stop?
Yes, ma'am.
Was he still there?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is your bus, or let me ask you this, what is your bus number?
1104.
And is your bus equipped with GPS technology?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Ma'am, I'm showing you the bus activity report. If you would just please indicate to the jury what time you would have dropped Chase Callahan off at his bus stop.
351, it says 1139 miles. At 352 is 1163 miles.
Do you know which one of those was his?
I believe it's 1163. He's got a fish mailbox. We
Okay.
have more by landmarks than actual addresses.
Okay, and so that one, what are the 3 minute or 3 o'clock 52 minutes? But what are the seconds?
352.20.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Ms. Donker might have some for you.
Ms. Dunbar?
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can sit down. Thank you, ma'am. You might remain in the courtroom if you like. Deputy Lloyd, raise your right hand, please. Be sworn. You swear the testimony you shall give in the matter now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you, sir. Have a seat, please, and say for the record your full name
Russell A. Lloyd Sr.,
and where you employed, sir.
Columbia County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, sir. Please answer council's questions.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed at the sheriff's office?
I'm a deputy on road patrol,
And how long have you been a deputy with the sheriff's office?
13 years.
Okay. Were you employed in that same capacity on January 31st, 2011?
Yes, I was.
And as a result of your responsibilities and duties, or I guess if you could just go through what those responsibilities and duties are as a road patrol deputy.
Well, we handle All sorts of kind of calls. We handle domestics, we handle cat calls, dog calls, anything that's got to do with any citizen in Columbia County, speeding, accident, traffic accidents. We handle pretty much anything that citizen requires to do in the county.
Okay. As a road patrol deputy, are you typically the first person on the scene?
Most of the time, yes.
Okay. And do you recall on January 31st, 2011, responding to 1159 Miles Road?
Yes, I did.
And where is that located?
It's off of County Line Road.
Okay.
Out in Harlem, on the other side of Harlem, in between Harlem and Thompson.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And do you recall specifically what time that date you were dispatched to that
I was
location?
dispatched at 16:02 on a Monday.
Okay. And what is that in layman's time?
4:02.
Is that AM or PM?
That's PM.
And what county is that located in?
What county?
Yes, sir.
Columbia County.
Thank you, sir. Upon arriving at 1159 Miles Road, what was, let me ask you, what was the driveway like?
It's a long dirt driveway. It's probably, I couldn't estimate, maybe several hundred yards long back to the residence.
All right. And when you initially pull up, do you see anyone as you're inside of your vehicle?
Did I see any?
Anyone, like once you get down the driveway, are you able to see anyone at that point?
When you pull them beside the house, I could see some subjects on the left side of the house, kind of in the wooded, or close to the wooded area.
Okay. Do you know how many?
I saw 3.
Okay. And were you able to determine who those individuals were?
Yes. One of them was the sister. Her name is Amanda. And then the brother, the younger brother, was there. His name is Chase. And then Mr. Schmidt was there.
Okay. And do you see Mr. Schmidt in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And if you would, please identify him by one article of clothing he is wearing.
I can't see. Okay, that's the second. Green shirt.
Okay, thank you. And may the record reflect he has identified the defendant, Aaron Schmidt.
Thank you. I would just point out that it's kind of hard to
Yeah, I
see
couldn't
anything
see
over
it.
there because of that
There you
monitor.
go.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And where were these individuals located exactly when you see them for the first time?
They were, when I pulled up my vehicle in front of the resident, it's a mobile home that runs, a modular home that runs this way, and they were to the left of it. There's a pathway, not a pathway, but in between the trailer and the wooded area. They were right in that area.
Okay, and what is the first thing that you do?
I made contact with them and the younger sister, Amanda. She was screaming and hollering. They had come up close toward to the left side of the trailer, and she said, "My sister's bleeding real bad, this and that and the other." I said, "Okay, point to where she's at." And she pointed back in the wooded area, which was probably, I would say, maybe about 20 yards.
Okay.
And at that time, I could see a body laying on the ground.
Okay, and did you approach that body?
Yes, I did.
And what, if anything, did you do at that point?
I touched and see if I could feel any pulse or anything. I couldn't feel any pulse or anything. So I saw blood. There was blood all over her face and everything else. And I really didn't know exactly what was happening. And so I immediately tried to administer CPR.
Okay, and were those attempts successful?
Ma'am?
Were those attempts successful?
No, they were not.
Okay, and at that point, what is Amanda doing?
She is screaming. To the top of her lungs. She's outraged. She's just hysterical. She's crying, screaming. I mean, and I was trying to do what I was doing, trying to calm her down, and she kept on and kept on. I mean, she was ecstatic.
Okay, and what about Chase?
He was too. He was standing right there and doing the same thing. I mean, they were both just, and she had blood all over, the sister had blood all over her, and he was irate also. He was screaming and.
Okay, and what about the defendant, Aaron Schmidt? What was he doing?
He wasn't crying. Didn't seem like there was a care in the world. He was standing right beside me. He didn't say anything. He was just like talking, like you talking to your buddy. That's all he was doing. I mean, he was not, I've never seen it before. You know, if you see something like that, it even disturbed me because, and I've been doing it in law enforcement as long as I have. It disturbed me, and he was just no emotions, no whatsoever.
Okay. And Your Honor, by way of stipulation, I would ask to just admit States Exhibit 14 through 28 and publish those to the jury.
14 through 28
Yes.
admitted by stipulation?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Dunkard. And that's inclusive, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, 14 through 28 inclusive.
Thank you.
And if we could dim the lights.
All right.
No, the lights.
They've just recently tasked me with that responsibility. This is the first time.
Yes, sir. There's 3.
Okay, thank you.
What is, this is State's Exhibit number 14, and what is this a picture of, Deputy?
This is a picture of Amanda with blood on both hands.
Okay, and if you would, can you see it on your screen up there? If you would just point to the blood.
Up there?
There's a pointer right there on your table, if you see it.
Oh, is that what that is?
You can use that, that might be easier.
All right. It right here on both of her all of her index fingers, and then on her left and right hand, and also on the right palm.
Okay, and is that how Amanda appeared to you that day?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
Thank you. And this is State's Exhibit number 15. What is this?
Yes, ma'am. That's the same thing. It's that's Amanda with she got blood on all of her left hands, all of her hands, fingers, and then also the right hand, fingers, and palm.
Okay. Thank you. And this is State's Exhibit number 17. What is that?
That's a blood stain that's on her pants leg on the left side.
Okay.
Of her left leg. Amanda.
And State's Exhibit number 19. Who's that?
That's a picture of Mr. Schultz that day.
Mr. Schultz?
I'm sorry. Mr. Schmidt, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Aaron.
And is that about how is there anything we can do about that light right there?
Yeah, it's hard.
We can't turn it off?
Yes, ma'am. He was in the demeanor that I saw him in that day. No emotions whatsoever.
Okay. And this is State's Exhibit number 21.
That's a picture of Aaron with blood stains on the left side of the jacket that he was wearing that day. Also, on the lower part of the jacket, he's also got blood stains on his left pants. You can't see it right there, but there's a blood stain right in that area on the left side of his pants.
Okay. Is there anything we can do about this light?
I know it's hard to see from that.
Can you substitute one of these other lights for that light? Or are those the lights that are on even when the room's closed up? You want to try it, Nathan?
That's even better.
Oh, stationary.
That one that you last did was a little bit better because it glared on there. All right. State's exhibit number 22.
As you can see, there's the blood stain on the left side of the pants leg of Aaron, and also he's got a lot of blood on the lower side of his jacket, shirt.
And state's exhibit number 23. I realize you probably can't.
Yes, ma'am. That's the right here is another blood stain that was in the other prior picture to that. It's just the same blood stain on the left leg of the left pants of the left leg of Aaron.
This is state's exhibit number 25. See if you can tell what's on there.
That's Aaron. That's the backside of the shirt and the pants that he was wearing that day.
And state's exhibit number 26. Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am. This is a picture of right and left hand, and also the front side of Aaron. You can see he's got a blood stain on it would be on his right sleeve of the lower part of the shirt, and then also that's all I see except for the dirt that he's got on his hand.
Okay, and what about this state's exhibit number 20?
Okay, and there you see the blood stain also here on the cuff of the right sleeve, and then there's blood on the the right finger, and then there's some on the left finger.
Okay. And, Your Honor, may I pass these to the jury, state's exhibit 26 and 28, just for the lack of the ability to see?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You can. And officer, after you arrived, was a perimeter established?
Yes, ma'am.
And exactly how large explain to the jury what a perimeter is.
A perimeter is whenever we got a crime scene, we take the center of the crime scene and anything we try to get a span of anything that's around that perimeter that could be evidence that we can collect, or any evidence that might move the area or anything. We try to keep it inside of that perimeter so that it won't be contaminated. And we do that by Sheriff's Department. If y'all ever seen that yellow tape, it says Sheriff's Department. It's all the way, and we put it all the way around the residence and also around the wooded area behind the house and in front.
Okay. And what did you do with Amanda, Chase, and the defendant at that point?
After I did CPR on Elena, then the EMS got there, and I took the three, Chase, I took Aaron and Amanda. They were to try to get them out of the crime scene. I took them up to the side of the house, left side of the house, and went around to the front, and I left them there because we'd already had another officer that had arrived, an investigator had arrived, so I left them on the front porch, and I went back around to the back side. That's when I started doing all the security, all of the.
And at any point, did you allow any of the three individuals that you found at the crime scene to enter the residence again?
No.
To your knowledge, did they ever enter the residence after that point?
No.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any further questions. Ms. Donker might have some for you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a follow-up question. In the time that you've been a road patrol deputy, have you seen many different types of reactions to traumatic events?
Sure.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything by way redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can sit down. Thank you, sir. All right, your next witness, please.
The state would call Amanda Calahan. Amanda Calahan?
Amanda Calahan, please.